If I hadn't picked up that wedding ring under the sofa that day, maybe I never would have known that the man living in that mansion slept alone every night. And if I hadn't known that, maybe I never would have fallen for him. My name is Harrison, 23 years old. Graduated from the University of Washington with honors in architecture. People always say a top degree opens the door to the future. They forget to mention that the future also needs something else. Money. The summer I graduated, the real estate market froze. Dozens of architecture firms cut staff. Students like me became the last choice. 3 months. 147 job applications. 147 rejections. I went from fixing my resume to fixing my own expectations. At first I only looked for jobs in my field. Then any office job at all. Then serving coffee. Then loading boxes. Finally, I took a job I never thought I'd take. Cleaner for luxury private residences. The day I signed the contract, the manager looked at my file and asked, "You sure about this? I need the money. Doesn't it bother you?" "Bills bother me more." He laughed. I didn't. It was the most honest thing I'd ever said. The company only served the ultra-wealthy. Business owners, actors, famous doctors, people who owned more bedrooms than the number of people they met in a month. New staff like me were only assigned to wipe windows, vacuum, and clean common areas. There was an unwritten rule. Don't look too long into the clients' lives. We walked into their homes, made everything spotless, then vanished as if we'd never been there. No questions, no curiosity, no trace left behind. 3 weeks after I started, the manager called me into his office. "Harrison." "Yes, there's a special client." "I'm listening." "He's asking to replace the entire cleaning team." "Why?" "He says the previous ones worked too loudly." "What do I need to do?" "Be quiet." "I don't talk much anyway." "Then you're a good fit." He handed me a black keycard. "From today, you're in charge of this house." I looked at the address. A neighborhood by Lake Washington. I knew the place. Houses there rarely showed up on real estate listings because the owners almost never sold. I was curious, but I didn't ask. The next morning, the company car stopped in front of a gray-black steel gate. No nameplate, no house number, no doorbell, just a camera. I scanned my card. The gate opened slowly. A stone-paved path wound through towering cedar trees. The deeper I went, the more the place felt like a resort rather than a home. Then the mansion appeared. Not grand in a showy way, but beautiful in a way that stopped an architecture graduate like me in my tracks. Minimalist lines. Exposed concrete. Oak wood. 2-story glass. Every proportion was perfect. Whoever designed this place was extraordinarily skilled. I forgot I was there to work, until the watch on my wrist buzzed. 8 o'clock. I quickly changed my shoes, put on gloves, and started. Strange thing. The house was huge, but there was no sign of a family living there. Just one pair of slippers, one mug, one toothbrush, one seat at the dining table that showed regular use. No family photos, no photos of a partner, no sound of children. Everything was clean, orderly, beautiful, and lonely. I didn't understand why that word came to mind. Maybe because the house was too quiet, like it had grown used to only one person coming home each night. In the living room, I bent down to pick up a cushion that had fallen beside the sofa. Just then, something rolled out. A ring. Platinum. A men's wedding band. I picked it up. Engraved inside, in tiny letters, "Forever." Gee. Before I could set it back down, a low voice came from behind me. "Don't." I spun around, startled. A man stood at the end of the hallway. Dark blue shirt. Sleeves rolled up. Tie loosened. Probably just back from work. He was very tall. Nearly 6'3". A face handsome in a cold sort of way. Gray-blue eyes, but weary. The strange thing was, what caught my attention first wasn't his looks. It was his gaze. It looked like the gaze of someone who'd grown far too used to living alone. "I'm sorry." I quickly set the ring on the table. "I didn't mean to." He walked closer. His eyes stayed on the ring. "I know. You're the new hire? Yes. Name? Harrison. He nodded, barely. I'm Graham. We shook hands. His hand was cold. Not from the weather. More like it had been a long time since he'd truly held anyone's hand. He picked up the ring, turned it silently between his fingers, then slipped it into his shirt pocket. I was about to get back to work when I suddenly heard him ask, Harrison. Yes. What do you see in this house? I thought it was just small talk, so I answered honestly. I see a very beautiful building. What else? I want to hear the truth. I looked around. A spacious living room, beautiful light, everything perfect. But in the end, I said the first thing that came to mind. I see. Someone trying to keep this house looking like two people still live in it. The room went completely silent. Graham said nothing, just looked at me. For a long time, so long I started to regret it. I'm sorry. Why are you sorry? Because I said too much. He smiled faintly. It was the saddest smile I'd ever seen. Then he looked down at the ring in his hand. You're the first person to notice that. At the time, I had no idea. I just stumbled onto a secret Graham had kept hidden for 3 years. And I had no idea that, from that moment on, every week he would find some reason for me to keep coming back to that mansion. Even though my job was only to clean it. The first week, I told myself it was all just a coincidence. The second week, I started to think it was strange. By the third week, even my manager couldn't help laughing. Harrison. Yes. You know the client at the lakeside mansion just called? I didn't know. He asked for you by name. I looked up from the stack of towels. Me? Yeah. He must have a complaint. No. He shrugged. He only said one thing. I waited. If possible, please let Harrison keep handling my house. I froze. That almost never happened at the company. Clients usually only cared whether the house was clean. Hardly anyone remembered the cleaner's name. Harrison. Yes. Don't mess this account up. Of course not. But on the drive to the mansion that morning, I couldn't stop wondering. Why me? This time, Graham was already home. He sat out in the backyard, at a wooden table facing the lake. On the table, a laptop, a few folders, and a cold cup of coffee. I walked past, nodding slightly. Morning. He looked up. Morning, Harrison. Go ahead and work. I won't bother you. I'm taking a break. I just smiled and went back to work. I didn't want to be the kind of employee who chats up clients. But the more I worked, the more I noticed something strange. The house was clean to the point where it barely needed cleaning at all. No clothes tossed around. No stacked dishes. No forgotten wine glasses. Everything neat. As if its owner had grown far too used to living alone. I was wiping the windows when Graham's voice came from behind. Harrison. I turned around. He was holding 2 paper coffee cups. I bought an extra one. It's fine, you don't have to. It's fine. He held the cup out to me. Take 5. Company rules said staff weren't allowed to accept gifts from clients. But turning down a cup of coffee felt a little rude. I took it. Thanks. We sat at opposite ends of the table on the porch. Between us, the quiet blue lake. For a long while, neither of us spoke. Strangely enough, that silence wasn't uncomfortable at all. After a few minutes, Graham spoke up. You really studied architecture? Yeah. Still want to work in it? I laughed dryly. Of course I do. Then why not keep looking? I still am. Found anything yet? Not yet. He didn't ask further. Maybe he understood that answer was already enough. Sometimes failure doesn't need details. Just one word, not yet, is enough. That day, while cleaning Graham's study, I accidentally saw an entire wall covered in architectural drawings. I stood frozen. Those lines, very professional. I'd even seen a few of the buildings in magazines before. Couldn't help it. Is this? Graham stood behind me. I drew them. You're an architect? He nodded. Was. I quit. Why? He looked at the drawings. Tired. Just one word. But it carried a strange weight. I didn't ask further. because I recognized something in his eyes that looked a lot like myself. Someone who once loved the work deeply, but life pulled them away from it. By noon, I was getting ready to leave. Right then, Graham's phone rang. He answered. I wasn't trying to listen, but the voice on the other end was too loud. You're still living in that house? It's been 3 years, Graham. He's gone. I immediately turned away. Clearly, it was a private conversation. As I picked up my bag to head out, Graham called after me. Harrison. Yes. Do you know how to cook? I blinked. A little. Kind of. I was going to order takeout. Oh, but I don't like fast food. I didn't understand what he was getting at, until he continued. If you're ever free someday, I'll pay you. I laughed. Are you hiring me to cook now? No. He laughed too. I'm asking. I thought about it for a few seconds. Actually, I worked part-time at a restaurant back in college. Then it must be good. I won't promise that. Graham nodded slightly. It doesn't need to be good. I just. He paused. Don't want to eat alone. I looked at him. For the first time since meeting Graham, I no longer saw him as a successful man living in a multimillion-dollar mansion. Just a guy a few years older than me, trying to hide his loneliness behind a house that was too big. I smiled. I'm off this weekend. If you don't mind, I can cook. Graham's eyes lit up, just slightly. Really? I won't take money for it. Then how do I pay you back? I joked. Just let me admire this gorgeous kitchen. That's enough. He laughed out loud. It was the first time I'd heard him laugh for real. Not a polite laugh, not a forced one, but a laugh that gave the whole quiet mansion a breath of human life. Driving away that day, I had no idea that promise to cook one dinner would completely change the relationship between us. And I never imagined that, in that very kitchen, I would learn why Graham still kept the wedding ring of a man who had never actually become his husband. For the whole week after, I kept thinking about Graham's invitation. Not about the dinner itself, but about his last words. I just don't want to eat alone. Simple enough on the surface. But the more I thought about it, the more I recognized a very familiar kind of loneliness in it. Back in college, I'd lived with 3 roommates in the dorm. The room was always noisy. Someone playing guitar, someone up late gaming, someone studying and singing at the same time. Back then, I always dreamed of a quiet place of my own. Then, after graduating, when I finally rented a small studio all to myself, I understood. Quiet and lonely are 2 completely different things. Saturday morning, I stopped by the supermarket on my way to the mansion. I bought simple things. Chicken breast, potatoes, asparagus, mushrooms, sourdough bread, apples, a small apple pie for dessert. All dishes I used to make back when I worked part-time at that restaurant near campus. Nothing fancy, but enough to make a meal feel like home. When I rang the bell, Graham opened the door himself. He wore a gray t-shirt and sweatpants. No more dress shirt, no more tie. He looked much younger. Am I on time? You are. He glanced at the 2 grocery bags in my hands and frowned slightly. You bought a lot. I didn't know what you had in your kitchen. I'll pay you back. I already told you. I'm not taking it. He looked at me for a few seconds, then laughed. You're really stubborn. I just don't want to turn an invitation into a transaction. Graham's expression froze for a moment. Maybe I didn't even realize what I'd just said, but he only nodded slightly. Thank you. Graham's kitchen was beautiful enough to make any architecture lover swoon. A white marble island, walnut cabinets, glass doors opening onto the garden behind the house. Early autumn sunlight poured in, warming the whole kitchen. I rolled up my sleeves. Can you help me wash the vegetables? Graham looked at me, startled. Me? You want to just stand there and watch? He laughed. I thought I was the host today. Today you're the sous chef. He took the basket of vegetables from me. His movements were pretty clumsy. I couldn't help laughing. You've never cooked before? I have. Really? A little. How little? He thought about it very seriously. Once. I burned the whole pot. I burst out laughing. At least you're honest. I'm always honest. Not quite. How so? You said you'd wash the lettuce. I looked at the lettuce leaf he'd crushed to bits. But it looks like you're taking revenge on it. This time, Graham laughed along with me. Laughter rang through the big kitchen, strangely warm. While cooking, we talked about college. Turned out Graham had studied architecture too, just a different school. He'd graduated 5 years ahead of me. I used to think I'd open my own design studio. And then, I did open one. Sounds amazing. 3 years. 3 years what? I sold it. I stopped what I was doing. Why? He looked out at the garden. Someday I'll tell you. I nodded. I understood that feeling. Some memories aren't ready to be told yet. Dinner was ready in about an hour. Pan-seared chicken, mashed potatoes, roasted asparagus, mushroom soup, warm bread. Not a fancy dinner. But when it was set on the table, Graham looked at it for a long time. What's wrong? I don't remember the last time someone cooked for me. Since college? He shook his head. Longer than that. I didn't ask further. We started eating. For the first 10 minutes, almost no one spoke. Until Graham set down his fork. Harrison. It's good. Good. No. He smiled. It's really good. I thought you were just being polite. I'm not good at being polite. I noticed. I'm only good at working. And designing mansions. He laughed. Used to be. I still like to call you an architect. He looked at me. Why? Because your eyes change every time you talk about architecture. Change how? They come alive. That remark made Graham go quiet. For a long time. Finally he just said, softly, it's been a long time since anyone noticed that. After dinner I stood clearing the table. Graham brought out the apple pie. Time for dessert. You made preparations too, huh? No. He pointed at the box. I bought it from a shop. I figured. He cut the pie. 1 slice each. The atmosphere was so peaceful I almost forgot I was originally just his cleaner. Right then, my eyes caught a framed photo on a shelf near the living room. In it, a younger Graham, standing next to a blonde-haired man grinning widely, their arms around each other's shoulders, looking at each other more than at the camera. I recognized it instantly. That wasn't the look of 2 friends. It was the look of 2 people in love. Before I could look away, Graham had already noticed. He walked over, gently picked up the frame. That's Ethan. He said it very calmly. Your boyfriend? Yeah. Sorry. It's fine. I thought he'd put the photo away. But he didn't. He kept holding it, his eyes soft to the point of aching. We fell in love freshman year of college. I stayed silent. Lived together for almost 7 years. My chest tightened slightly. 7 years. That's right. And then, he smiled faintly. If I told the whole story tonight, it'd take forever. Then some other time. Graham looked at me. Aren't you curious? I am. Then why not ask? I shrugged. Because if you want to tell me, you will. In that moment, Graham looked at me in a very different way. No longer the homeowner looking at his cleaner. No longer the client looking at the service worker. But a man slowly opening up to someone else. He set the frame down. Then said softly, Harrison. Yeah. Next week. Could you come here without the uniform? I looked at him, confused. You mean? I want to take you to dinner. This time. As a friend. My heart suddenly beat faster. I didn't know how to answer. I only knew that it was the first time since walking into that mansion that I felt the door between us had truly opened. The following Friday night, I stood in front of my closet for almost 15 minutes. Sounds ridiculous, I know. But this was the first time I'd be going to Graham's mansion not as an employee. No uniform, no gloves, no cleaning cart. Just me. A dark blue sweater, jeans, and the white sneakers that had been with me all through college. I checked myself in the mirror, then laughed at myself. Harrison, you're just going to dinner. Don't act like it's a date. The moment I said it, I froze. A date. Just that one word was enough to make my ears burn. I shook my head. No, don't overthink it. Graham only said he wanted to be friends. That's all this is. This time, Graham opened the door almost the instant I rang the bell. He wore a cream-colored sweater and dark khakis. Casual. Simple. But somehow it felt much more intimate. Am I too early? No. He looked me over for a moment, then smiled. Blue really suits you. I felt a little embarrassed. Thanks. I almost wore a dress shirt, and then felt too much like meeting a business partner. I laughed. Good thing you changed. Yeah. He shrugged slightly. I didn't want tonight to feel like a work meeting. That remark instantly lightened the mood between us. Dinner this time wasn't at the mansion. Graham drove us to a night market by the waterfront. I thought you'd pick somewhere fancy. I hate those places. Really? Too many people staring. I looked at him. Are you famous? Graham laughed. No. Just a lot of people in the architecture world know me. I thought of the drawings in his study. You used to be very successful. Maybe. Then why? He looked out toward the water. Harrison. Let's not talk about the past today. Okay. I want to know about you. We bought 2 orders of tacos from a food truck. Sat on a wooden pier watching the ferries pass by. No one recognized Graham. No one cared who we were. That seemed to make him relax noticeably. Have you ever been in love? He asked out of nowhere. I nearly choked. That's a tough question. Tough. I had a crush once. And didn't work out. A classmate. I nodded. Same major. Did he know? No. Why didn't you say anything? I laughed dryly. Because he had a girlfriend. Graham let out a soft ah. What about you? I asked. He looked out at the water. I've only ever loved one person. Ethan. Yeah. Just one. Just one. I didn't know what to say next. Something in his voice made me understand. He'd never truly moved on. After we finished eating, we walked along the pier. The early autumn wind was pretty cold. I instinctively zipped up my jacket. Graham noticed. Cold? A little. He took off his own scarf. Handed it to me. You don't have to. Take it. What about you? I'm used to it. I took the scarf. It was still faintly warm. A very light scent of cedarwood lingered on the fabric. Not a strong cologne, but a scent that made you want to lean closer. I immediately scolded myself. Don't think weird things, Harrison. By the time we got back to the mansion, it was dark out. Graham turned on the fireplace. We sat in the living room. For the first time, I had a chance to really take in the house. In the corner of the room stood a piano covered in a thin layer of dust. Do you play? Used to. Why'd you stop? Lost the mood for it. Can I look? He nodded. I opened the lid. The keys were still well maintained. I tried a few notes. A clear sound rang through the room. I don't know how to play. I've forgotten almost everything too. Graham sat down beside me. His hands rested on the keys. Slowly, he played a short melody. Not perfect. A few off notes. But very beautiful. What's it called? He smiled. Don't remember. I only remember. It was a song Ethan liked. The mood in the room settled into stillness. I turned to look at Graham. He was still looking at the keys. His gaze far away. Can I ask something? Sure. Ethan. Did he pass away? Graham shook his head slightly. My chest eased at once. No. Then. He took a deep breath. We broke up. I was surprised. 7 years together. And then you broke up? Yeah. Why? He was quiet for a long time. So long I thought I wouldn't get an answer at all. Finally, he only said, because of me. I chose my work. Over him. I didn't know the details. But just looking at Graham's eyes, I understood. It wasn't the kind of breakup full of anger. It was the kind that hurt both people. And neither of them really won. That night, before I left, Graham walked me to the door. Harrison. Yeah. Thank you. For dinner. No. He shook his head. For listening. I smiled. That's what friends are for. The moment I said friends, something hard to name flickered across Graham's eyes. He smiled, but the smile didn't quite reach his eyes. I hope we'll be friends for a long time. I smiled too. Long enough that you get sick of me, at least. I don't think that'll happen. Neither of us knew at that moment. In another city, after 3 years with no contact at all, a man named Ethan had just booked a flight back to Seattle. And his one and only reason was to see Graham again. 3 days after that dinner, I was wiping windows at an apartment downtown when my phone buzzed. It was Graham. I was a little surprised. In over a month of knowing him, he'd basically only texted to confirm cleaning schedules or ask if I was free to cook dinner. This was the first time he'd actually called. I'm here. There was a pause on the other end. Then Graham's voice came through, lower than usual. Harrison. Yeah. Are you working right now? I am. I'm sorry. Is something wrong? He hesitated. I wanted to hear a familiar voice. I went still. That wasn't the voice of someone calling about work. It was the voice of someone trying to hold themselves together. Graham. Are you okay? He laughed softly. You caught on fast. Just a guess. Something bad happened today. I'm off shift at 4. If you want, I could stop by. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. Okay. Thank you. When I got to the mansion, it was raining in Seattle. Graham didn't open the door right away. I rang the bell a second time. A third time. Finally, the door opened. He was still in his work clothes, tie still on. But what startled me was his eyes, red and swollen. Not like he'd just been crying. More like he hadn't slept in hours. Am I bothering you? No. He stepped aside. Come in. In the living room, on the table, sat a white envelope that had already been opened. I caught a glimpse of the top corner without meaning to. The sender was a law office in Chicago. I didn't ask. Instead, I took off my jacket. Have you eaten? Graham shook his head. Me neither. Then let me cook. Harrison. Yeah. You don't have to. I'm hungry. I smiled. So really, you're doing me a favor. He looked at me for a few seconds, then let out a breath. Okay. That night we ate pasta. Simple dish. Quick to make. While the water was boiling, Graham sat on a stool by the kitchen island, not saying anything, just watching me work. After a while, he spoke. Harrison, I'm listening. Do you ever feel like you're living in the past? I turned off the stove, turned to look at him. Yes. When my father died. Graham looked a little surprised. I'd never told him about that before. I used to think, if I'd come home earlier that day, if I'd called him that day, if, I laughed sadly. So many ifs. And then I realized, the past doesn't hear the word, if. The kitchen fell silent again. Graham lowered his head. After a long while, he finally spoke. I got a letter today. What letter? Ethan got married. I froze. Oh, I thought I was fine with it. Turns out I'm not. He laughed. A very thin laugh. It's ridiculous, really. It's been 3 years. And it still hurts. I didn't know how to comfort him. Some kinds of pain make every reassurance feel too small. I just slid the plate of pasta in front of him. Eat, or it'll get cold. Graham looked at me, then laughed. You really are. Always pulling me back to the present. After dinner, it was still raining. Harder now. I think you should stay the night. Graham looked out the window. The roads are slick. I don't want you driving. I looked outside too. It really was pouring. Okay. I'll take the sofa. No. He shook his head. The living room's cold. There's a room upstairs. I don't want to impose. You're a guest. No. I laughed. I'm an employee. Graham looked straight at me. Harrison. In this house. For a while now. I haven't thought of you as an employee anymore. My heart skipped a beat. That night I stayed in the guest room. Around 2 in the morning, I went down to the kitchen for water. The living room light was still on. Graham was sitting alone in front of the fireplace. In his hand was the platinum ring I'd seen before. He didn't notice me, just quietly turned the ring between his fingers. I was about to head back upstairs. Then he spoke. "You're still up. I came down for water. I'm sorry." "For what?" "For letting you see this." I walked closer, sat down in the chair across from him. "You miss him?" "Yeah. A lot." I nodded. "I know. Aren't you jealous?" I looked up. "Jealous? I keep talking about my ex. I keep holding onto this ring. He stopped himself. Maybe right then he realized how strange his own words sounded. I looked at him, very calm. "Graham. Why would I be jealous?" He was quiet. I continued. "We're friends. And Ethan was a very important part of your life. I can't erase that." Graham looked at me for a long time. The firelight reflected in his gray-blue eyes. Something was shifting, very slowly, but very clearly. He asked softly, "Harrison, yeah, if one day I really did move on, would you think that means I betrayed all those years with Ethan?" I shook my head. "No, love isn't a room where, once someone new walks in, the old memories have to disappear. It's more like a house. You're just opening another door." Graham said nothing, just looked at me for a long time. Then, unexpectedly, he stood up, walked over to the piano, sat down, played the old melody again. But this time, at the end, he stopped and wrote a few new notes of his own. He turned to me, smiled faintly. "Maybe it's time this song had a next part." I smiled too, but neither of us knew. At Seattle Airport, right at that moment, a blonde-haired man was pulling his suitcase out of the arrivals gate. And on his phone screen was the address of Graham's mansion.